Good evening and welcome to the briefing room. I'm Madhavdas G. Now, is ethanol-blended petrol damaging a car or a two-wheeler? This is a question that is gaining traction on social media as it's flooded with videos of motorists as well as mechanics making a range of claims. So what's fact, what's fiction? We're going to decode it all for you tonight, viewers. Now, the claims around E20 petrol have flooded social media. There are posts which allege that 20% ethanol blend reduces fuel efficiency, especially in older vehicles. That it damages rubber and plastic fuel components due to moisture absorption. There's also a claim that it makes cold starts more difficult in winter. And despite these apprehensions, there are automakers who have firmly backed E20. From Maruti to Toyota to Hero, a whole host of automobile companies have come out to say that their service data shows that there is no evidence of E20 related corrosion or any abnormal wear or reduced component life. But there are concerns over ethanol which have intensified amid speculation about the possible E25 rollout as well. The government has made it clear, however, that no decision has been taken yet. What is fueling this fear is the fact that the government has exempted petrol containing 22 to 30% ethanol from central excise duty, placing it on a tax footing similar to E20. It has also proposed amendments to the central motor vehicles rules to formally recognize E85 and E100 fuels. Faced with an online and opposition backlash, the government seems to have backtracked on E25. Now, India's auto industry too is stepping in on the accelerator and is coming out to defend the ethanol program. Automakers and industry experts insist that the blended fuel has been subjected to rigorous scientific testing and is safe, not just for newer vehicles, but even for vehicles manufactured before 2023. They say that extensive testing on E10 vehicles running on E20 found no issues with wear and tear, corrosion, or engine life. They've also said that ethanol is a cleaner, high-performance fuel that strengthens India's energy security by reducing dependence on imported crude, while also boosting farmer incomes at the same time.
We've had at least 15 years, more than 15 years, where we've had E10 in the market. And if you use E20 fuel on these E10 cars, we have tested it internally. There is a separate test by ARAI. The past 15 years from our entire service network, and we have not found anything of concern.
The sources to produce its ethanol, which has led to the reduction of crude import. And if you have seen the West Asia crisis, which we overcame, some part of the vulnerability was reduced by reduction of crude import equivalent to the 20% gasoline, which was made available to all the customers across the country.
In an era when we are facing the issue of climate change and are looking at rapidly decarbonizing, this is a zero carbon fuel because it's derived from plants.
Now, after much furor, the centre has decided to move and douse the concerns over ethanol-blended fuel. It says E20 is safe, it has the backing of automakers and users, and claims of widespread problems are based on misinterpretation. On E25, the government has made it clear that no decision has been taken yet. Any rollout will follow scientific testing and broad consensus building. Now, the centre is linking the ethanol misinformation campaign to a bigger strategic battle. Government sources have said that the panic is being fueled by fake videos and allege that there's a deliberate attempt to derail India's push for energy self-reliance. Sources also claim that reducing oil imports is a national priority and suggest that foreign lobbies may be trying to disrupt the ethanol mission.
If it is somebody suggesting that hum jaldi se E25 ला रहे हैं, we have made it clear, we are doing tests. Those tests will take time. Once the reports of those tests are in, we will evaluate those. Then we will talk to the stakeholders. We will talk to the automobile manufacturers. Because I neither make the cars nor the fuel. The car manufacturers are comfortable with E20. Each one of them has made a statement. The consumer loves the pet thing. We have got a rollout only of E85, and that E85 will take a little bit of time because new petrol pumps and all will come in.
Let's take a look closely at some of the arguments and concerns that are being raised vis-a-vis the facts that the government has clarified as far the entire controversy is concerned regarding E20. The first argument, that it isn't safe. The government says that it's been in circulation since April 2025. Second argument, that it's causing engine-related issues. The industry says that these are isolated cases. By and large, there have been no major issues that have been reported. Argument 3, why not move to electric vehicles? Now, it's a fact that China controls 95% of the global battery supply and therefore is also very strong when it comes to supply of parts related to EVs. Fourth argument, why not continue as it is? The fact is that India imports 88.5% of its crude requirements, and therefore reducing this is going to make a huge difference as far as our foreign exchange spending is concerned. The fifth argument, that insurance companies are refusing claims. The government says that E20 has no impact on the insurance or the warranty as far as automobiles are concerned. And that's certainly the major issues that have been clarified as far as the government is concerned. But let's also tell you the concerns surrounding blended petrol. The first concern is about vehicle compatibility and fuel efficiency, where the government says there's not a single case of vehicle breakdown. There's also, of course, the issue about whether this can impact on the mileage, especially in older vehicles, where the government says that Brazil has been using E27 for years as its standard, and there are no issues that have been reported over there as well. The third concern, ethanol is hygroscopic, raising maintenance concerns. Now, the experts have come out to say that modern vehicles can safely handle ethanol blends by the very nature and the structure. The fourth concern, availability of higher blends may be limited. The government says fuel infrastructure is being upgraded in phases, and that will eventually take care of the issues that are being talked about. Fifth concern, more sugarcane cultivation can strain water resources. Government says ethanol can also be made from grains and surplus rice, and therefore that concern would be addressed. Now, the blended petrol is already being used in top economies of the world. What really is the precedent? We have Brazil, where it's using E27, and the target is E35. There's the United States, where E15 is being used. The target is E85. In Japan, it's E10, which is in use. The target here is E20. In India, we're currently rolling out E20, or in the process of rolling out E20, even as this debate is happening. And the big question is how far we'll be willing to go in terms of using other blends of the fuel as far as this is concerned. Now, the politics over E20 seems to be heating up. From citing Niti Aayog's report that producing 1 liter of sugarcane-derived ethanol requires approximately 2,860 liters of water, to claims that the auto industry is lying, the opposition is asking several pointed questions from the government over ethanol blending. AAP national convener Arvind Kejriwal has accused automakers of downplaying E20's impact, claiming that owner manuals tell a very different story. He is demanding that there be a written assurance that E20 will not affect engines or mileage, seeking compensation if it does, and calling for ethanol-blended fuel to remain optional. Listen in.
केंद्र सरकार ने 6 ऑटो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनियों को बुलाया और बोला तुम प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करके जनता को कहो भाई E20 ठीक है। इन कंपनियों ने झूठ बोला। इन तीनों कंपनियों ने, मारुति सुजुकी, टोयोटा किर्लोस्कर और हीरो मोटरकॉर्प। टोयोटा का ओनर मैनुअल कहता है टोयोटा अलाउज यूज ऑफ इथेनॉल ब्लेंडेड गैसोलीन वेयर इथेनॉल कंटेंट इज अप टू 10%, मतलब वो कह रहा है कि 10% तक इथेनॉल होना चाहिए। और उसमें नीचे नोट में लिखा है इफ यू आर नॉट सेटिस्फाइड विद ड्राइवेबिलिटी और फ्यूल इकोनॉमी ऑफ योर व्हीकल व्हेन यू यूज गैसोलीन अल्कोहल ब्लेंड you should switch back to unleaded gasoline containing no alcohol.
It is no longer an experiment. This is being done on a commercial scale, and it's being done at the behest, at the instance and the benefit of one senior union minister.
All right, let's take this across to our guest. Joining us is Sanju Verma, national spokesperson of BJP. We have Avinash Verma, who's a former DG, ISMA and ethanol expert. We also have with us Bhavya Narasimhamurthy, spokesperson of the Congress. Bijon Mishra, consumer activist, is with us. Let me start first and foremost with you, Bhavya Narasimhamurthy. What is the exact nature of the concern? The government says that all of this has happened over a certain period. E10 has been introduced, it's been in the market for over a decade or so, and it is in a phased manner after testing that E20 is now being rolled out. What is the exact nature of concern?
I have a few questions. One, if you have experimented, if you have done your research and then floated this thing, what are the details of your experiment? On how many vehicles have you done this? One, there are countries like Brazil and some South American countries where this ethanol is being used by the citizens. But you know what? They have a choice. They have a choice whether to use ethanol mixed fuel or not. But we have not been given a choice. Nitin Gadkari decides it and it is being implemented to every citizen out there. My third question, what about those vehicles which are Euro 4 and before that? If there is some damage, when the insurance companies are denying that they will be of any use, will the government take the responsibility for it? What about the middle class and the lower middle class people? If their vehicle is damaged because of this in the long run, say in a year, will government take the responsibility? And most importantly, I'm telling you this, one, it reduces the efficiency of the vehicle, the mileage as such. Two, the engine damage that I just spoke about. The third thing is economic exploitation. You are saying that you want to reduce your, import of crude oil. That's why you're mixing ethanol 20% and forcing citizens to use it. Fine. You want to save on your foreign exchange? But why are you taxing ethanol where the production cost of ethanol, the 20% of the fuel is less than the petrol? Why are you charging the same tax on ethanol as well?
Actually, the cost of ethanol has gone up. The cost of ethanol has actually gone up over the last few years, but there are some very valid concerns. Let me bring in Sanju Verma now of the BJP. Sanju Verma, respond to that. A, no clarity on if there is damage to vehicles, who's going to bear the cost? And B, in terms of actually introducing it, if there has been testing, what are the details of that testing? Please respond.
Madhav, let me first say one thing. This entire bogey, which is anti-ethanol and anti-E20 compliant vehicles, let me say one thing very clearly. The SIAM has clearly said that the loss in mileage for two-wheelers is between 1.5% to 3%. The loss in mileage for four-wheelers because of E20 or ethanol usage will be between 3 to 6%. So the first point is the loss in mileage for both two-wheelers and four-wheelers due to ethanol blended fuel is minimal and marginal. Point number two, they say that, the engines will face knockout and there will be corrosion because ethanol absorbs moisture and water. This is what I say is a classic case of people having half knowledge and coming on television debates. Ethanol is a universal solvent. It easily combines with hydrogen because it belongs to the OH group and it has high polarity. So to put it simplistically, while ethanol absorbs water readily, ethanol does not retain moisture because I will tell you why. India uses multi-feedstock while making ethanol. It is not purely from sugarcane molasses. It is from corn/maize. It is from biomass waste. It is from agricultural produce that is inedible. It is from stubble. It is from inedible rice. It is from inedible wheat. It is from paddy straw, which means that the ethanol produced in India is anhydrous. It does not retain moisture. Okay. So this entire argument that, there will be corrosion of the rubber linings and all, that is balderdash. The third point, very importantly, people say, the Modi government has simply imposed E20 compliance. No, that's wrong. E15 has been in existence since the latter half of 2022. E19 has been in existence since the latter half of 2023. And then from the latter half of 2024/mid-2025, E20 has been in existence. So there has been a calibrated response from the government right from E15, E19 to E20. So
Okay.
anybody who does not know,
I'm going to get a quick rebuttal from Bhavya and come back to you as well, and then I'll go across to other panelists. Bhavya, this is a calibrated introduction, and this is not something that has happened overnight. It's over a period that these things have been introduced, so it's not fair to say that it's being forced down people's throats.
No,
Your response?
Sanju Verma, it is very elitistic. Sanju Verma took a very elitistic view of talking about efficiency. Do you know how much 3% to 6% fuel efficiency matters to poor people and the middle class and the lower middle class of India? How can you say it's just, minimal or something like that? 6% fuel efficiency, it matters. One. And next time you do your research, please do not stick to your WhatsApp messages. Ethanol is hygroscopic. That means it binds the moisture, it binds to the water elements, it settles at the bottom of the fuel tank, and therefore the damage happens to the fuel tank over a long term. This is science behind ethanol, and that's one of the reasons we have been saying only those vehicles.
But Bhavya, may I ask you, are all these auto companies which have come out and made their statements, do you believe that they are all being economical with the truth?
And not the ones below that. Sorry?
Bhavya, the entire automobile industry, all the top corporates, you must have seen 2 days ago how they came out to dispel all these rumors. They've said that we have been looking at services of vehicles, and the vehicles which are regularly serviced will not have any major problems. So do you believe that all these automobile companies, ongoing experiment was the E25? They said that they spoke about E25 where there is current trials going on. I think we are confusing the two issues. There was one statement that was made in the Supreme Court that was clarified. But nevertheless, Sanju Verma, I want you to respond to those two or three very important points. Are citizens being experimented upon? And should this government have been a little more transparent and informing the citizens? Now that, all the fact checks and all the questions and answers that are coming out now, could this have perhaps be done a little earlier to avoid so much of confusion and speculation?
Madhav, I don't want to make this personal, but Bhavya Narasimha Murthy needs to know there is nothing called elitistic. She meant to say Sanju Verma is elitist. Please learn basic English. And yes, it's better to be a WhatsApp bhakt than to be a Pappu bhakt who says today morning I got up at night. So
Okay. Let's come back to the issue, please. Yeah.
Let me come back to the issue. The issue is this. Is ethanol hygroscopic? Yes. That is why I said it absorbs moisture. But does it retain moisture in Indian conditions? No, because we use multi-feedstock and not just sugar molasses. Point number one. Point number two, 3 to 6% mileage loss, she says, is a big blow to the middle class. Excuse me, from Maruti Suzuki head honcho to Toyota's head honcho to Hero MotoCorp, TVS and Bajaj Auto, who I'm sure know what they're doing because they've been in this business for donkey's years. They have said it very clearly. In the long run, the longevity of the engine increases if you use ethanol blended fuel because ethanol absorbs combustion heat as it has a very high latent level of vaporization, which means that ethanol blended fuel automatically cools the engine. It improves acceleration.
Yeah.
It improves combustion.
No, but
and it is a great disinfectant.
Okay, let me bring in the other panelists as well now. Mr. Abhinash Verma, I want you to come in on this because, if you look at a cost factor, just consider the fact that a petrol price hike of about 7 rupees that we saw a few months ago, on a base price of about 97, 98, depending on which part of the country you stay in, that caused a huge amount of talking point. So does Bhavya have a point when she says 3 to 6% increase is also certainly going to be a hit? If you factor in the aspect that you'll have to service the vehicles more regularly, there are concerns about the possible impact, although automakers are saying it won't be very huge, but there are some concerns about how this fuel shift is going to impact on the Aam Aadmi of this country. Are there valid concerns?
Yes, let me answer this in 3 or 4 parts. First of all, let me clarify the point that Bhavya made. Brazil, you have the base fuel of E30. There is nothing else than E30 there. And then you have E100. So the consumers can use a combination of either E30, E100 or any mix thereof. The base fuel there is E30, which in India's case today is E20. That is one point of clarification. Second point is very important that we need to understand. When we had this West Asia crisis, the prices of petrol would have gone up tremendously because the price of crude oil was doubled from about $40, $50 to $120, $125 per barrel. Yet the government did not increase it by that percentage. And I think we should thank ethanol, which was domestically produced, which replaced 20% of the petrol consumption in the country. Just imagine, had ethanol, which is produced and is costing lower than petrol, had it not been there, the price of petrol would have been higher, number one. Number two, the availability could have been a concern because suddenly there would have been a 20% less petrol availability in the country. Thirdly, on the issue of damage of engines. Now, what are these engines made of? These engines are made of metals. There was a study by ARAI along with SIAM and I think Indian Institute of Petroleum, and they have concluded very clearly that there is no impact of E20 fuel on even E10 compatible cars, as the older vehicles, as far as startability is concerned, drivability is concerned. Even it does not affect any metal part, or it does not corrode immediately at all. What it does is it affects only the rubber parts or the rubber gaskets. And those don't cost about 15,000 or 20,000 over a period of about 8 to 10 years. So therefore, I don't think there is any impact. Now, let me give me one example. When we carry pure ethanol from the factory to the depot of the oil companies, these are carried in mild steel, MS-made tankers. Now, had these been corrosive, these MS tankers would have corroded. People store the ethanol in their factories in the tanks made of MS, mild steel. Those don't corrode with pure ethanol. How can 20% ethanol corrode an engine which is also made of similar metals?
All right. Let me bring in Bijoy Mishra. Bijoy Mishra, is there a lot more hype, a lot of misinformation being spread? Because particularly on social media, if you look at the kind of videos that are coming in, government seems to be denying a lot of that. Or do you believe that consumers have not been adequately informed in time? Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, Madhav, absolutely right. You see, the point which I always make is the responsibility of the government to ensure that there's a large degree of awareness built before you introduce any kind of a product mix at the marketplace. Awareness building is paramount. It has to be there. And the most important issue is, as I saw almost in 2000, in several countries, there are studies which establishes the fact that there is nothing adverse about using of ethanol mixed with petrol. So there is no adverse effect. Science has proved that. We've got enough data, but it needs to be communicated in a common man's language. It should be very transparently shared. There should be choice.
Yes.
You see, the consumers need choice.
Yes.
They need to be educated. They need to be told in terms of how to move forward, in terms of the country's interest, in terms of our foreign exchange import, because we are highly dependent on crude. So we have to think about it, and then our farmers, how they will gain from it. You must understand that they'll get a good kind of a return in terms of their subsidiaries. And what my most important issue is that there has to be a robust redressal mechanism. If supposing somebody is having any kind of an issue, then that needs to be addressed. In a scientific manner, in a robust manner.
Fair point. Let me bring in Mr. Avinash Verma on that. Mr. Avinash Verma, what about a redressal mechanism? And I think the biggest consumer issue is the lack of choice. Because from politicians to consumers, what they seem to be saying is that if other countries have the option of different fuels, and of course, eventually we may have to shift to a flex fuel kind of a situation and those kind of vehicles, but at the moment of introduction, shouldn't there be adequate choice given to the consumer?
No, let me clarify. As I mentioned just now, that Brazil has a base fuel of E30. There is nothing less than that there. 30% ethanol blended fuel is the minimum that is sold in Brazil. The other option is E100 because they have flex fuel vehicles and the consumers there have a choice between E30, E100 or any combination thereof.
But Brazil has had this for decades.
Let me take the example of US. US
you
has
can't compare Brazil and India because Brazil has had this for decades.
Yeah, they had for decades.
I'm talking about at the introductory stage, shouldn't there be adequate choice? Isn't that a fair question?
Yes, that's a fair question. Let me go back to the 70s and the 80s when Brazil rolled out the program. they had E80 by 1980. And then you had older vehicles also there. The flex fuel vehicle in Brazil came in around 2003 onwards. Therefore, it is not that the older vehicles can actually not exist along with the newer vehicles. Now, there is a program that the government is introducing for various other benefits. Let us not forget, we are all suffering with pollution, emissions, which our transport fuel is causing. Fossil fuel has about 8 to 10 carbons, whereas ethanol has only 2 carbons. So you can see the emission. The 2021 study of ARI and SIAM confirmed that with E20 fuel, you have 50% lower carbon monoxide emissions, 50% lower carbon monoxide, and 30% lower hydrocarbon emissions.
Okay.
So that is a priority of the government to reduce pollution in the country.
Certainly. I mean, reducing pollution, I don't think anybody would have a problem from that aspect. But it boils down to choice also. It boils down to the consumer's right. And Sanju Verma, respond to that point being made by Bijon Mishra. Why not give consumers that choice? We can introduce it and introduce it in a slow manner. When awareness increases, when availability increases, when the infrastructure is better suited, automatically people will take it, won't they?
You know, Madhav, I think Bijon Mishra made some pertinent points. So I just want to say this. You know, when was E9 introduced? Way back in 2001. E10 was introduced way back in 2003. And E20 has actually come with full force into practice only from April 2025. So I go back to the same argument. This has been a calibrated development. The point that I again wish to focus on, point number 2, is this. By comparing India with Brazil or US, it's like comparing apples with watermelons, because Brazil introduced E-compliant, ethanol-compliant vehicles way back in 1979.
Right.
That was 47 years back, and the United States introduced ethanol-compliant vehicles for the first time in 1908, 118 years back. If, say, 10, 20 years later, we have to get into FFVs, you know, flexi fuel vehicles, then we have to start
that
somewhere.
Will perhaps happen at some point of time.
As good a time as any.
Yeah, that will perhaps happen at some point of time. But there's a lot of fears. There's a lot of confusion, unfortunately. And we certainly hope this debate has put some amount of that to rest. But I think the political controversy over this entire issue is only going to continue. Sanju Verma, as well as Abhinash Verma, and also, of course, Bijon Mishra, I'd like to thank you for joining us. In fact, Bhavya will stay with us for our next story.